You might think the NCAA wouldn't ever shut down an entire football program, but in 1987, Southern Methodist University found out the hard way that the NCAA wasn't just tossing around empty threats. SMU had been dipping deep into a shady playbook for years, paying players under the table like it was just another line in the budget. And here's the wild part: this wasn't even a one time thing. They had already been caught, already put on probation, and still kept the secret money train rolling like nobody was watching. But the NCAA was watching, and when they discovered that SMU still had a slush fund paying players while on probation, they lost all patience. The NCAA didn't just slap them with a fine or reduce a few scholarships. No, they went nuclear. They canceled SMU's entire 1987 football season. Every single game. No practices, no recruiting, no cheering crowds, just silence. It was the first and only time the NCAA gave a major program what's now called the death penalty, and it fits the name. SMU's football program was absolutely wrecked. The punishment was so brutal that SMU couldn't even handle the watered down version of a team for 1988. They gave up that season too. Recruits bailed, coaches left, fans disappeared. The stadium sat mostly empty. It wasn't just a bad year, it was like the football program had been deleted from existence. By the time they came back, the damage was already done. SMU didn't have another winning season for 2 decades. 20 years of irrelevance, all because they thought the rules didn't apply to them. The NCAA wanted to make an example out of somebody. SMU just happened to be the one that pushed too far. The message was loud and clear: cheat, lie, and ignore the rules, all you want, but if you get caught too many times, they won't just take your trophies, they'll take your entire team. And SMU never fully recovered. This wasn't just a football story. It was a human tragedy hiding in plain sight, wrapped in the legacy of one of the most respected programs in the country. In 2011, the world found out that longtime assistant coach Jerry Sandusky had been sexually assaulting young boys for years, sometimes right on Penn State's campus. But what shook people to their core wasn't just what Sandusky did, it was the possibility that powerful people knew and didn't stop him. Joe Paterno, the face of Penn State football and the winningest coach in major college history, suddenly became part of the fallout. He wasn't accused of committing abuse, but reports said he didn't do enough when he first heard about it. Just like that, a man who had built an empire on discipline and integrity was gone, fired. His statue was taken down, his wins were stripped, his entire legacy flipped upside down in just a few days. And it didn't stop with him. The university president, the athletic director, and other officials were either fired or resigned. Everyone who had a chance to stop this and didn't act fast enough paid the price. The NCAA dropped the hammer hard. A $60 million fine, dozens of scholarships gone, bowl bans, and over 100 of Paterno's wins erased from the record books. The penalties were so massive that they felt more like a message to the entire college sports world. The scandal ripped through the Penn State community like a storm. Alumni were heartbroken, students protested, and survivors came forward. It forced a nationwide conversation about morality in sports and how far people were willing to go to protect an image, even when real people were getting hurt. The sad truth is, this wasn't about football anymore. It was about doing the right thing, and how failing to do that can destroy everything, no matter how powerful or beloved you are. This one doesn't just feel like a Hollywood movie. It feels like Scarface got bored and decided to sponsor college football. Nevin Shapiro, a Miami booster and full-time scam artist, pulled off a Ponzi scheme worth nearly $1 billion. Yeah, billion with a B. And while he was robbing investors blind, he was also living it up like a South Beach kingpin, throwing money, booze, and girls at the Hurricanes football team like he was hosting a never-ending yacht party. Between 2002 and 2010, Shapiro claimed he gave more than 70 players everything from straight-up cash and jewelry to paid trips, VIP club access, luxury hotels, and yes, even prostitutes. Some of the stories were so ridiculous you'd think he was writing fan fiction. He said players were getting freaky on his yacht, partying in his mansion, and shopping like NFL stars before even getting drafted. And here's the kicker: he was doing all this while chilling on the sidelines like he was part of the coaching staff. The guy was basically Miami's unofficial mascot. When Shapiro got locked up in 2011 for his financial crimes, he decided to sing like a canary. He gave a full-blown tell-all to Yahoo Sports, and the NCAA had no choice but to jump in. Their investigation turned into a multi-year circus, but somehow the U avoided the death penalty. Instead, they got hit with scholarship reductions, probation, and a whole lot of humiliation. Oh, and let's not forget the awkward press conferences. But here's what's even crazier. Some folks still argue this wasn't even the worst chapter in Miami football history. That's how deep the rabbit hole goes. Miami didn't just have a scandal, they had a lifestyle, and Nevin Shapiro was the ringleader, living out his fantasy until the whole thing came crashing down in flames. This one's not just messy, it's downright disturbing. Baylor football had turned into a Big 12 powerhouse under coach Art Briles. They were scoring like crazy, racking up wins, and finally getting national respect. But while fans were celebrating touchdowns, something horrific was happening behind the scenes. In 2016, the lid blew off of a story that would change the way people saw the program forever. Multiple Baylor players had been accused of sexual assault over the years, and the university, it pretty much did everything it could to pretend none of it happened. Reports revealed that victims were ignored, complaints were mishandled, and investigations were brushed aside. Campus police and athletic officials worked together to keep things hush-hush, and the worst part? Some players kept suiting up every Saturday like nothing happened. It wasn't just one bad apple either. This was systemic. Emails showed administrators discussing how to avoid bad PR. Coaches reportedly warned players not to talk to police, and when victims came forward, many were re-traumatized by the way the school treated them. It was a total betrayal, not just of school policy, but of basic human decency. The fallout was brutal. Coach Briles got the boot. The university president, Ken Starr, yep, the same guy from the Clinton investigation, resigned, and the athletic director was shown the door. Baylor tried to wipe the slate clean, but it was too late. The damage was done. Donors backed off, recruits looked elsewhere, and the team that once dreamed of playoff glory suddenly became the poster child for institutional failure. To this day, Baylor's program is still trying to rebuild its reputation, and no matter how many games they win, there's a dark cloud that still lingers over the stadium. Because this wasn't just about football, this was about lives ruined, and a school that looked the other way. This wasn't just a loss, this was an earthquake in cleats. Back in '07, the Michigan Wolverines were the giants of college football. Ranked number 5 in the entire country, they were opening their season at home, inside the iconic Big House, with over 100,000 screaming fans. Their opponent? Appalachian State. A solid team, sure, but they were from the football championship subdivision, basically the little leagues compared to Michigan's big boy status in the FBS. Everyone thought this was going to be a warm-up game, a live practice, and a blowout with popcorn, but that's not how it went. Appalachian State came into Ann Arbor with absolutely nothing to lose and played like it. From the jump, they weren't intimidated. They ran their plays with confidence, moved the ball with swagger, and didn't blink once. Meanwhile, Michigan looked like they were still in summer vacation mode. By halftime, people watching on TV were checking the score and thinking the clock was broken. Then it got worse for Michigan. The Mountaineers kept answering every punch with one of their own. Michigan tried to wake up in the fourth quarter and even had a chance to win it with a game-ending field goal, but Appalachian State's special teams came through with the block of the decade. They swatted the ball like it owed them money. Game over. Appalachian State 34, Michigan 32. The crowd went silent. Then they booed. Then they cried. Analysts on ESPN were literally speechless. Michigan's national title dreams? Gone. Their season? Basically ruined before it even started. It was the first time ever that an FCS team beat a ranked FBS opponent. Let that sink in. Appalachian State didn't just win a game, they shook the entire sport. They reminded every powerhouse school that you actually have to show up and play. No win is guaranteed. And now, every time a small team faces a giant, people whisper one name: Appalachian State. This one's just plain messy, the kind of game that makes you question everything, especially the scoreboard. It was October 6th, 1990, and Colorado was fighting for a national title. They were playing Missouri on a gray afternoon in Columbia, and from the jump, the game felt off. Sloppy play, confusing calls, and a general sense of nobody really having control. But nothing prepared fans for what happened at the end. Late in the fourth quarter, Colorado was trailing. They were driving down the field, desperate to pull off a win. On what should have been third down, they ran a play and got stopped short. The officials marked the ball, but for some reason, which is still debated to this day, they didn't flip the down marker. So now it was fourth down, but on the sidelines and in the booth, people thought it was third. So they ran another play. Still short. That should have been it. Missouri should have taken over on downs. Game over. Huge win for the Tigers. But no, the refs gave Colorado a fifth down. An actual fifth down. That's one more than the game allows, in case you're keeping score at home. And on that fifth down, Colorado scored the game-winning touchdown. The stadium erupted, but not in celebration, because Missouri fans were furious. Coaches were confused, broadcasters were double-checking their notes, but the damage was done. Colorado walked away with a win they absolutely didn't earn, and Missouri got robbed in broad daylight. Afterward, the outrage was intense. The NCAA reviewed the game, but the results stood. Colorado kept the win and later went on to claim a share of the national title that year. Yup, that fifth down helped them win it all. This incident led to big changes in how officials track downs and manage late game situations. Chains were triple checked, down markers were scrutinized, And the fifth down game became required viewing for every officiating crew in the country. And if you ask Missouri fans about it today, they still haven't forgotten or forgiven. College football doesn't get more chaotic than this. The 2003 Fiesta Bowl had everything: high stakes, drama, and an ending so controversial that fans are still arguing about it over 2 decades later. This was the national championship game between Ohio State and Miami, and let's be honest, both teams were stacked. Miami came in riding a 34-game winning streak, full of future NFL stars. Ohio State, on the other hand, was seen as the underdog, but that didn't stop them from going toe-to-toe all night. The game was already a thriller when it headed into overtime, tied at 17. But in the first overtime, things got wild. On fourth down, Ohio State went for it. Incomplete pass meant game over, right? Miami players were jumping around, and the band started playing. Even the confetti people were getting ready. But then, boom, a flag came flying in, and not just a regular flag, but one that came several seconds after the play was over. Pass interference on Miami was called, and suddenly the whole mood shifted. Ohio State got a fresh set of downs, scored, and eventually won in double overtime. The ref who made the call, Terry Porter, instantly became a legend, or a villain depending on who you ask. Miami fans still believe it was a clean play, and that late flag was the definition of highway robbery. As for Ohio State fans, they say the interference was obvious and the right call was made, no matter how late it came. But here's the thing. That one call flipped the outcome of a national championship. It wasn't just a game changer, it was a legacy changer. Miami could have had back-to-back titles. Instead, they walked away stunned. As for Ohio State's win, it became one of the most debated in college football history. That play is proof that in this sport, one flag can rewrite everything. Let's be real, college football has had its share of award snubs, but this one still stings. Marshall Faulk was an absolute monster in 1992. He didn't just lead the NCAA in rushing yards with 1,630, he made defenders look like traffic cones. He stacked up 15 touchdowns and averaged nearly 6 yards a carry. That's not just good, it's game-breaking. And he did it all while playing for San Diego State, a team that didn't exactly light up the national spotlight. No big TV contracts, no title runs, just Faulk doing his thing every week. So when Heisman voting time came around, everyone figured Faulk would be a lock. But nope, the award went to Gino Torretta, a solid but not spectacular quarterback from Miami. Sure, Torretta had good stats. He threw for over 3,000 yards and 19 touchdowns. But let's be honest, his numbers didn't scream best player in the country. They screamed, I play for a stacked team with a killer defense and top-tier receivers. It wasn't just that Faulk didn't win. He didn't even come in second. He finished third, behind a guy who wasn't even the best player on his own offense. That's not a snub. That's a crime scene. And what made it worse was the obvious bias. Torretta was playing for a national title contender on national TV every weekend. On the other hand, Faulk was quietly putting up video game stats in the shadows. And that's the problem. The Heisman has always had a bit of a popularity contest vibe, but in 1992, it felt like the voters just ignored greatness because it came from the wrong school. Faulk would go on to have a legendary NFL career, racking up over 12,000 rushing yards, winning an MVP, and getting a gold jacket in Canton. But that missing Heisman, it still bugs people, because if you watched him play that year, you knew. He was the best player in college football. Period. Some people say you should never meet your heroes, but what if your hero ruins everything on live TV by punching a college kid in the throat? That's exactly what happened in 1978 when Woody Hayes, one of the most successful coaches in college football history, completely lost his mind in the middle of the Gator Bowl. Now, Hayes wasn't just some regular coach. He was a legend. 5 national titles, 3-time National Coach of the Year, and over 200 wins. He turned Ohio State into a powerhouse and had the kind of reputation that made people say things like old school, hard-nosed, and intense. However, he was also known for having a serious temper. Players knew not to cross him, and assistants knew to stay out of his way when things got bad, but no one saw this ending coming. The game itself wasn't exactly going smooth for Ohio State. They were up against Clemson, and it was tight the whole way. But with just minutes left, Clemson's Charlie Bowman intercepted a pass from Ohio State's quarterback. That one play basically sealed the win for Clemson, and as Bowman got tackled out of bounds near the Ohio State sideline, he stood up and looked around like any fired-up player would. Big mistake, because that's when Hayes went into a full meltdown. Out of nowhere, Hayes lunged forward and punched Bowman right in the throat. Not a shove, not a grab, a full-on punch. And the worst part? It was caught on national television. Everyone watching at home saw it happen live. The announcers were stunned. The crowd went silent for a second. Then people started yelling. Coaches and players had to pull Hayes away, but the damage was already done. By the time the team flew back to Ohio, Hayes didn't even have a job anymore. Ohio State fired him immediately. They didn't wait for the weekend, nor did they try to cover it up. One of the most powerful men in college football was gone overnight. Just like that. Some people tried to defend Hayes, saying he was emotional or that Bowman taunted the sideline. But come on, this was a grown man, a coach, a leader of young athletes, throwing punches like a bouncer at a bar. There was no coming back from that. His career ended in total disgrace, and that one punch became the only thing people remembered. Even now, decades later, when people talk about bad sports moments or coaches losing their cool, Woody Hayes comes up every single time. It doesn't matter how many championships he won. 1 second of rage erased years of greatness. And in the wild world of college football, that's all it takes. When people talk about moments that shook college football, this one always makes the list. It wasn't just about the punch. It was about pride, trash talk, frustration, and a live audience that couldn't believe what they saw. Let's set the scene. It was the first game of the 2009 season. Oregon was ranked, and there were big expectations. Their new coach, Chip Kelly, was making his debut. They were up against Boise State, a team that had already embarrassed them the year before. But Oregon's running back, LeGarrette Blount, wasn't having any of that. He told reporters before the game that Oregon owed Boise State a whooping. He called them out directly and said he was going to take care of business. But when game time came, nothing went right. Oregon couldn't move the ball, and Blount finished the night with -5 rushing yards. Yup, -5. He looked frustrated, and the whole team looked off. Boise State dominated the game, winning 19-8. And when the clock hit 0, Blount was walking off the field, clearly angry and disappointed. Then came Byron Hout. He was a Boise State defender and clearly riding high after the win. As Blount passed by, Hout clapped right in his face and said something slick. Cameras caught the whole thing. Some people say it was just trash talk. Others say Hout used a racial slur. We'll never know for sure, but whatever it was, Blount heard it, turned around, and leveled Hout with one of the cleanest punches ever seen on a football field. Hout dropped instantly. Chaos followed. The crowd started booing. Players started arguing, and coaches were trying to hold Blount back as he went after fans in the stands. It looked like a full-on brawl was about to break out, all on national television. It was one of those moments where everyone watching sat up straight and said, "What just happened?" The fallout was immediate. Oregon suspended Blount for the rest of the season. NFL scouts started backing away, and his draft stock took a nosedive. For a while, it looked like Blount had thrown away his entire future with one bad decision. He went from being a Heisman hopeful to a cautionary tale in a single night. But here's the twist. Blount eventually got a second chance. He went undrafted, but signed with the Tennessee Titans, then ended up making a name for himself in the NFL with the Patriots, winning multiple Super Bowls. He turned his career around, but even with all that success, people still bring up that punch first. And Byron Hout? He says he doesn't hold a grudge. He knows it was heat of the moment stuff. But still, no one forgets the night Oregon got beat, the trash talk flew, and LeGarrette Blount let his fist do the talking. If you enjoyed watching this video, click to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.